Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Wednesday it is. It is also April 10th now. So, kind of getting on through April here pretty good here. But today, really, the big story is all of this severe weather that we're kind of working with and dealing with throughout much of the kind of southern part of the country, really, especially in Louisiana and Mississippi right now and throughout much of today. That's really the big time story. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and of course, comment, let me know where you're watching from, what you're seeing out there, and consider sharing the video with somebody that you think might find some use out of it, as again, we really discuss this big-time severe weather threat throughout all of today's video. Alrighty, with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into it, because again, we do have some pretty active stuff ongoing, and we kind of need to go ahead and start talking about it sooner rather than later. So here we go. We're taking a look at current watches, warnings, and advisories out there. We've got flash flood watches here in kind of these green areas on your map, and really, quite honestly, it's really everywhere within this circle is under that flash flooding threat here. But we also have tornado watches, at least at the time I'm recording this. That is in these yellow boxes. We even have severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings ongoing currently in Louisiana. But again, that's at the time I'm recording this. Now, another thing I want you to notice here on radar is, or not radar, but these advisory maps, is this kind of area of these dark red burgundy colors, if you will. Those are flash flood warnings. So, again, flash flood warnings are posted from almost the Alabama-Mississippi border all the way down through portions of Texas, as again, we've just had a lot of rainfall overnight tonight and this morning, just kind of piling up over the same areas. So, definitely kind of a really not so great morning and afternoon for a lot of folks in this part of the country, and that'll be the same for a lot of folks into this evening and into tomorrow as well as this threat shifts off towards the east, and again, more people kind of get in on that action. Now, as we kind of take a look here at satellite imagery as well, you'll be able to see this show up very well. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, kind of these cloud tops weren't getting too high, but I said going into tomorrow, expect that to change. And sure enough here, we take a look on our map here, look down here towards Louisiana, see how bright these colors are. That's indicating to me that these thunderstorms are growing very tall up into the atmosphere and kind of hitting the top of the troposphere here. That just indicates very strong storms, again, dumping a lot of rain, a lot of very high winds as well this morning. We've had wind gusts getting up near 100 miles an hour, at least on Doppler radar, and some of those are going to definitely mix their way down to the surface. So some of this damage you see maybe today and into tomorrow, you might think, well, that was definitely a tornado, not so fast, could easily be very strong straight line winds, although tornado damage, again, is also going to be very likely as well through a lot of these communities into Louisiana, Mississippi, and even Alabama and potentially Georgia overnight tonight. So again, a lot of folks getting in on that action, and you can see it, picture perfect on radar here. And I'm going to zoom in just a moment, but just to kind of show you nationwide here what we're working with here, we've got some showers working up through the Northeast, Pennsylvania, up through the Catskills of New York State, where I know I've got some viewers from, which is super cool. And even up here into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, seeing some showers this afternoon. Now, we're also seeing showers here into the Ohio River Valley. I know we've got a lot of viewers in Kentucky as well, likely seeing some of those showers work on through today before tomorrow could become a little bit more severe with some of that rainfall. Even some showers working into the Carolinas. I had some pretty good rain in Charlotte overnight tonight, or overnight last night and into this morning, but now a lot of that rain working off towards the Greensboro and Raleigh area. And same story on the back end of the storm through Texas and Oklahoma, also seeing some rainfall. Now, I'm going to zoom this in here for a second just to give us a better look at this, and let's actually see how zoomed in we can get. This should do it pretty good for us. Yeah, beautiful. So looking at radar imagery, again, this is quite the storm system to look at. I'm going to move my face to the other side of the screen here just so you can see it a little bit easier. But look at this bow echo that is just blasted through Louisiana. This is kind of, almost mesmerizing on radar. But watch this section right here as it pushes in. Again, this is where we're seeing those very strong straight line winds. Again, it moved right through Louisiana, now moving into portions of southern Mississippi and still the western portions of Louisiana, about to work on through the New Orleans metro, especially the northern side of New Orleans. And eventually this afternoon, the same bow echo of storms is going to work into Biloxi and Mobile, and overnight tonight, eventually into the Florida Panhandle and southern Georgia, with again very strong straight line winds and embedded tornadoes. Now, another area we need to watch for tornadoes is watch as some of these little cells kind of work in out of the Gulf and up kind of in front of the squall line. These prefrontal cells, that's what has the chance to produce some tornadoes this afternoon. And because of that, we have a pretty high risk of severe weather, again, through a lot of this area, with that moderate risk being issued by the Storm Prediction Center, again, for many of these areas that are in the path of that very strong squall line that I just showed you. But even to the north of there, some storms could try to get feisty this afternoon up through the Birmingham area. Cannot rule out some stronger flyover storms, even up into Nashville. But just know instability in these parts of the country are much lower, especially as that strong squall line I just showed you is kind of robbing some of that instability transport northward. So again, many of the strong storms today, especially here along the Louisiana and Mississippi kind of border. Now, tornado threat today is absolutely real. We do have a 15% hatch risk of tornadoes, so that means 15% chance of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius in the red area on your map, a 10% in the yellow area, and then, of course, those chances go down more and more. But what you also want to notice here is this kind of shaded-in black box, or not even box, I guess. It's kind of a semicircle, although not a very pretty semicircle. But either way, that is where we could see strong tornadoes this afternoon. So that includes EF2 and higher tornadoes, and once you start getting into that level of intensity with the tornado, the destruction really begins to pick up. At that point, if you're in a mobile home, likely the mobile home's just going to be kind of wiped off the face of the earth once you hit EF2. You're going to start getting even more secure structures to kind of break down a little bit, and that doesn't mean just shingles flying and maybe a couple trees falling. Again, the damage really starts to pick up once you pass EF2. So again, need to have a way to get those watches and warnings this afternoon, and again, even into this evening. You'll notice that 10% threat going well into the Florida Panhandle. That could go even a little bit past sunset here. We could see this tornado threat. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see it even into portions of southern Georgia overnight tonight, where we could have some instability left over with these ingredients for tornadoes, and especially strong straight line winds. Now, swinging to that wind outlook a little bit more, again, it is no joke here in this purple area on your map here. Just, again, almost guaranteed sure bet you're going to see strong straight line winds here. And again, that black shaded area indicating that they could be extremely strong winds. So normally severe thunderstorm is about 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts or higher. But with this, I mean, we could be seeing 80, 90, even 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts at times, again, with that very strong bow echo of thunderstorms that are working on through. But even north of there, again, all the way up into southern Kentucky, back towards Little Rock, could see a couple isolated areas of kind of some strong straight-line winds that try to mix down to the surface of some of these showers and storms. Good news is hail today is not too big of a threat, definitely out there, and we've already seen some hail, but lower than the wind and tornado threat. But the highest chance of seeing some large damaging hail is going to be into southern Mississippi and extreme eastern Louisiana. So again, that's kind of the hail threat for this afternoon. All right, let's time this out for you a little bit and kind of give you a general idea of what's to come. So our high-resolution rapid refresh model has been doing an all right job at kind of forecasting this out for us, so we will definitely use it here. And this is about the time that this video is getting uploaded. You'll notice here it is. Here's that line of storms that is trying to push into and through southern Mississippi into portions of Louisiana. Again, very strong straight-line winds is absolutely going to be the main threat here, but also a couple embedded tornadoes are possible as well. Now that continues into this afternoon, eventually working into the southern half of Alabama and into the Florida Panhandle, back down near Mobile, Alabama. Could see some strong storms absolutely this afternoon. But even on the northern side of this, again, more of just some good old-fashioned rain here. But I want you to notice still that, could see some gusty winds getting as far north here as the Birmingham area. In fact, something that's showing up here that is very interesting is we actually have a closed isobar here, kind of right over central Alabama. That indicates to me that this complex of storms is really kind of a beast of its own in a way, and has the real potential to influence the weather in ways that maybe sometimes the models struggle to pick up a little bit on. And I was trying to mention that a little bit in yesterday's video, but in fact, this kind of reminds me of the same general setup we had last summer that ended up producing an EF3 tornado in North Carolina, kind of up near the kind of eastern North Carolina area, somewhere in the Rocky Mountain general vicinity. I can't quite remember the exact city, but again, these kind of convective clusters or MCVs definitely have the ability to surprise people and produce very strong tornadoes. So just something to be aware of this afternoon as that is kind of working on through Alabama, into the Florida Panhandle, and eventually, about the time the sun is going down here, into southern Georgia as well. Now, on the backside where this low pressure is, some of these storms could try to fire up a little bit and become a little bit stronger, but again, the main severe weather threat is with this cluster of storms here as it works on through this afternoon and into this evening. And eventually, even overnight tonight, working into southern Georgia, again into southern Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, getting into the midnight hour, and again, could once again produce some strong straight line winds, even a couple isolated tornadoes overnight tonight, but really the main severe weather threat is going to be from now till a couple hours after the sun goes down. All right, so one of the reasons we're seeing this kind of big plume of severe weather is due to the instability in the atmosphere, or CAPE, that we talk about a lot, or convectively available potential energy. Again, this is just thunderstorm fuel. It's kind of the simple way to think of it. And as we go into this afternoon, you'll notice we've got plenty of it here into southern Louisiana, into southern Mississippi, even trying to surge northward into Alabama and Florida. And again, all of this CAPE is going to be what really leads to the severe weather threat. Now, what you will notice, though, is as again we get past about the 8-9 o'clock hour, definitely still CAPE we're working with here into southern Alabama, into the Florida Panhandle, and into southern Mississippi. However, again, those values are coming down a little bit, so that's definitely good news as we go into the overnight, coming down even lower by the time we get into daybreak tomorrow. Again, into tomorrow morning here, you'll notice still that same complex of storms here likely, but CAPE values definitely trending downward, and we'll just have to wait for some reheating of the afternoon air tomorrow to kind of try to rejuvenate that a little bit. All right, so again, some of these storms are going to be rotating. That's kind of what this map shows. It's maximum updraft helicity, or that just tells us where do we have rotating updrafts in these thunderstorms as those air parcels rise from the surface. And again, as we mentioned, the biggest threat for that is going to be into southern Louisiana, where we've already seen some of those, into southern Mississippi this afternoon, and then into the Florida Panhandle and southern Alabama, especially going into, kind of closer towards sunset. So again, that's kind of our run-to-run maximum updraft helicity chart. So does a good job, and I think it's really useful on days like today. All right, so now I'm going to zoom this out a little bit and just show you the East Coast as a whole through today, because again, severe weather is a problem, but also to the north, we're just going to see some rain in general, and that is also going to be something that impacts people. So here we go, getting into about 2 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time, 1 o'clock Central time. Widespread showers up through the Northeast. Again, New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine seeing some showers, but also back down into the Ohio River Valley. As I mentioned, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Missouri could see some rain showers this afternoon, and on the backside, also some rain, potentially a little bit heavier, back through the Oklahoma City area, Tulsa, the Red River Valley, and back down into the Dallas-Fort Worth region. Now, moving this into this afternoon, into this evening, this is about 9 o'clock Eastern time tonight, and again about 8 o'clock Central, just again dealing with this big band of some very disturbed weather with some heavy rain, even a couple rumbles of thunder possible with this as well. Again, as we get into the overnight hours, definitely going to need to watch out for that as it rolls on through, and again brings some of that moisture. Now that continues into, further into the overnight hours, into early tomorrow morning. Again, some scattered showers left in the northeast, but definitely you'll notice kind of this bigger banding of the shield of rain on the northern side of this low pressure system. So again, it's going to be a rainy night. Again, rumbles of thunder into Indiana, Ohio, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky. A lot of these folks are going to see some pretty impressive rainfall rates, and it should pile up to a good couple of inches of rain before all is said and done by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning. So here we go, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Again, kind of two different modes going on. We've got this kind of just good old-fashioned rain on the northern side, but then we've got this warm sector that still has this leftover MCV from the day before. So waking up tomorrow morning, it's going to definitely be, I think, not a very good commute through much of the Carolinas. Charlotte, Columbia, Charleston, Greenville, Spartanburg, even down into Athens, Macon, and into the Florida Panhandle, Savannah. A lot of very heavy rainfall, some rumbles of thunder rolling on through in the morning. In fact, I'm sure you'll hear it whenever I record my video tomorrow morning, as I'm going to have to be recording at about this time. So again, just not a very fun time to have to commute anywhere during the early morning hours of tomorrow throughout the Carolinas. And then eventually we get into tomorrow afternoon, and we'll talk about that severe weather threat now in just a moment. All right, flooding, again, also a threat today. With all that rain that's falling, we do have a moderate risk of flash flooding from this kind of area of southwestern Georgia all the way back through southern Mississippi and into portions of Louisiana. But again, even north of there, plenty of heavy rain falling. Could see some isolated flash flooding spots into the Ohio River Valley as well, and even into the Carolinas by the time we get into tomorrow morning. And speaking of tomorrow, again, that severe weather threat is going to be very real tomorrow as well. We've got two separate kind of modes of severe weather. Again, we've got this slight risk up here through Ohio into western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Another slight risk down here into portions of Georgia and Florida, and even extreme southern South Carolina. Now, everywhere in between here, not saying you're not going to see severe weather, but it's just going to be kind of a little bit more difficult with the timing. We're going to have a lot of rain move through in the morning, and then the kind of second batch of storms won't get there until kind of a little bit further into the evening hours, kind of after some of that peak heating has already died off. So that is going to be kind of the big, question mark in this area, is if we see any storms that end up forming that can become strong to severe, specifically kind of the Charlotte area up towards Danville, Virginia, back towards Greenville, Spartanburg. I do think maybe some afternoon showers try to roll off the mountains and could become strong to severe, maybe even try to rotate a little bit. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. But the tornado threat tomorrow is there. Again, a 5% chance of a tornado within a 25-mile radius, kind of in those two slight risk modes that we talked about. So not as high as today, but again, still high enough that we need to definitely watch tomorrow and not let our guard down, throughout much of the day. Now, with that said, though, the bigger threat will be wind tomorrow. Again, much like today, again, in those kind of two different modes that we talked about. All right, so let's talk about it a little bit here. We'll start into Thursday morning here, and we'll start with kind of the northern mode here from Ohio and down into the mid-Atlantic, and then we'll talk about that southern mode into Georgia and Florida. So as I mentioned, again, it's going to be very rainy tomorrow. The winds are going to be gusty. There could be some thunder through the Carolinas, especially South Carolina, so kind of Charlotte over towards Fayetteville and kind of point southbound along the I-77 corridor and the I-85 and even the I-95 corridor. Again, could see some very, not fun weather tomorrow morning. Now, as we go into the afternoon, what you'll notice is things begin to get a little bit more interesting here. This is about probably noon, 1 o'clock, and we're still dealing with this big, massive rain into the Carolinas, and honestly, it shouldn't be that severe. We could see some areas try to become a little bit stronger about this time, especially, again, further south into South Carolina, I think. And if I just take a very quick sounding here, you'll notice it's kind of a good old-fashioned high shear, low cape. So looking at the top here, again, plenty of wind shear we're working with here, but our cape values are below 100, which I know you can't see it, but either way, again, just not really any instability in the atmosphere to work with, even if we do have plenty of wind shear. Now, that'll change a little bit in the afternoon. So here we go. This is getting into about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe even 3 o'clock here. And you notice this big massive rain now continuing to work off towards the east, towards the eastern Carolinas. Still just struggling to find any instability. But on the backside here, we get some clearing into South Carolina, the upstate, back into the Piedmont of North Carolina. We could maybe see some breaks in the clouds, try to reheat things a little bit. And as that's ongoing, our low pressure up here into Ohio is likely going to kind of reinvigorate a line of storms here on the backside, where again we have a little bit more daytime heating. And you'll notice as we get into kind of later in the afternoon, here it comes. Here's that line of storms from central Ohio, now stretching all the way back into West Virginia, and even into the Piedmont of North Carolina. This is where we're going to have more of that tornado threat tomorrow. On the backside, again, the timing will be kind of tough here. It'll be, maybe during peak heating, but do we actually have any peak heating? Do we, clear out these clouds at all from the morning rain and convection, or are we kind of still just dealing with kind of a soupy sky, if you will? So either way, though, this is where that severe weather threat really comes into play tomorrow afternoon, and I'll just take a couple soundings here at multiple points. First up here into Ohio, where I think definitely we have the best mixing of ingredients here, and again, we've got plenty of wind shear. You'll notice this hodograph definitely stretching pretty high upwards, a lot of speed shear to deal with, and even if I kind of try to scroll down here, our cape values are getting kind of past 1,000 joules per kilogram at the surface. So whenever you put all that together, and our SRH values are definitely conducive enough for maybe a tornado or two to develop, could definitely, again, see that tornado threat increase. Same story kind of further south. If I take a sounding down here kind of into the the Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Danville area, kind of through the triad, similar story. We've got this hodograph, maybe not quite as nice as the one up in Ohio, but nonetheless, we do have some cape values getting close to 1,000 joules per kilogram at the surface. Also, a little bit of an injection of some dry air here into the mid-levels of the atmosphere. That could help to keep these storms a little bit more isolated. So tomorrow afternoon could see, maybe some nicer structure. Definitely low top storms. These aren't going to be these massive cumulus clouds, but they could be broken up nonetheless. This might not be a line of storms, but more of a broken segment of storms that again could lead to maybe a little bit of rotation trying to embed themselves in some of these showers and storms. As we go through the afternoon, into the evening, and into the overnight, that instability once again dies down, and that severe weather threat should die down with it. Again, still a couple isolated storm cells here trying to kind of work through the Piedmonts of Virginia and North Carolina, but at this point, instability once again pretty low, that these should just be some showers that roll on through, and by the time we're waking up Friday morning, things should clear out outside of some back-end rain here into the Ohio River Valley, and maybe even probably still some cloudier conditions. All right, same map that we looked at for today's severe weather threat, maximum updraft helicity for tomorrow. Well, you'll notice again our big kind of area that's showing up is up here into Ohio, but again, even a couple areas kind of sprinkling in here into the Piedmont of Virginia, West Virginia, and even into North Carolina. Although there's not much of a Piedmont in West Virginia, but still, nonetheless, through West Virginia, could see some of these rotating updrafts tomorrow afternoon. So definitely want to watch out for that. Threat not off the chart. In fact, it looked a little bit better probably a couple days ago, but nonetheless, still big enough that we need to watch out for it. Now, the big difference on why tomorrow is not going to be a huge day in this part of the country compared to maybe what we're seeing in Louisiana right now is this map right here. Again, that unstable Cape map that we have been talking about. And you'll notice, although we do have some Cape here in the region, it's just very low. These colors are not very bright. The highest levels we're seeing, we've got some pockets of about maybe 1,200 joules per kilogram in North Carolina, and getting a little bit closer to maybe 2,000 joules per kilogram in Ohio, so a little more conducive for severe weather. But again, just not very high numbers in terms of instability. All right, what about the southeast? Again, we did talk about that slight risk into tomorrow afternoon in this part of the country, and it's all really going to come down to what's left over from that storminess in Louisiana today. So as we're waking up tomorrow, you'll notice we've got this big line of storms kind of rolling on through southern Georgia, southern South Carolina, and into the Florida Panhandle. Now, the greatest threat of severe weather, if I had to kind of circle somewhere on this map, is going to be right in here where we have enough daytime heating kind of ahead of that line of storms that this can kind of move on through during peak heating and, kind of take advantage of that here. Again, this is getting into tomorrow afternoon through the Florida area. Now, main threat, I think, here will definitely be straight line winds, but cannot rule out a brief isolated tornado as well into the southern tier of this storm threat. And again, those storms continue to roll on through the Florida Peninsula, even into coastal South Carolina throughout the afternoon hours of tomorrow and into the evening hours before finally clearing on out and dying off a little bit. Now, max updraft helicities in this area tomorrow. Again, all of this that you're seeing here is all from today, so that's, kind of ignore that. But nonetheless, still some areas tomorrow, especially kind of offshore of Florida through the Gulf, that could see, a couple of stronger updrafts develop and try to maybe cause some rotation in some of these storms. Again, Cape tomorrow is definitely going to be stronger down here, but still not really that off the charts here over actual land. Florida, again, you'll notice some areas getting a little bit higher here, but all things considered, still pretty low Cape values for, any kind of big-time severe weather. Another thing I will mention for tomorrow is excessive rainfall, definitely going to be a problem, and, not as bad as today, but still a slight risk of flash flooding up through Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, southern New York State, and into the mountains of Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia itself. Could see some areas of excessive rainfall, so definitely need to watch out for that. All right, final map I'm going to show you is just kind of zooming out one more time to show you this whole thing. This is tomorrow afternoon. Again, a big shield of rain to the north, up into the northeast, into the Midwest. That severe weather threat, one in Ohio, and then kind of, again, this line of storms back down south that works on through Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Now, getting into tomorrow evening, though, after that severe weather threat, again, it's just going to be rainy into the northeast. Could definitely be gusty as well, definitely breezy conditions, a lot of rain on the way. But that just kind of continues into our Friday morning, into our Friday afternoon, more of the same rainy, breezy conditions before I think finally by the time we're waking up Saturday and getting into Saturday afternoon, a lot of us are clearing out outside of some leftover cloudy conditions, some showers, and maybe even snow showers in the higher elevations of the northeast. And then after that, we'll talk about whatever the next storm system is on the horizon, but I'll kind of wait till we get there and kind of get on through what we're dealing with today. Alrighty, well again, talked about a lot today, a lot of information. Hopefully you found some use in it. If you did, definitely let me know in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, like the video if you liked it, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. With that said though, have a safe rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow.